Welcome back to another episode of the Scarfe Spurs Talk podcast. Oh dear, another therapy session, another defeat for Spurs. We sit in 15th place, 8 points above the relegation zone. I think this is really, dark and difficult time for the club. But as always, we try and be as balanced as possible. And I'm joined by a fantastic panel with me this evening, still with Billie T and potentially one other as well to join. So let's introduce them. Julie, welcome back. Obviously, you wrote the autobiography of Spurs, which is fantastic, and it's a pleasure to feature in it. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast tonight. How are you doing apart from Spurs?
How am I doing? Just writing stuff as usual. So there we go.
Yeah, you do write some amazing stuff. So thank you very much for coming on tonight. Joseph, welcome back onto the podcast, becoming a bit of a regular now, which I'm very glad to say. How you been doing, mate, apart from obviously the football?
Yeah, no, I've been good, thank you. Yeah, safe to say that it's not a good time to be a Spurs fan. Let's just say that. Just result after result going the wrong way, really, isn't it? So yeah, not feeling too good after that result, but hey, it gives us a lot to talk about, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does give us a lot to talk about. I'd much rather it be the other way, not too much to talk about. We got the result, to be totally honest with you, but that's the way it is. Before we get into it, because I feel like there's a lot to talk about, to rant about, to discuss, to debate, you name it. Do check out our sponsors in Secure VPN and the Kitman once again this year. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new. Smash that subscribe button, really helps us. Turn the notifications bell on. Get involved with the comments if you are listening live on YouTube. If it's this via audio, podcast platform, don't forget to drop us a follow and a 5-star review if you're enjoying the episode. But you can head over to YouTube and smash that subscribe button too. It would be greatly appreciated. So let's crack straight into it. I think it's only fair we start with the discussion in terms of maybe a banner we saw this weekend and the whole ownership at Tottenham, because the banner was proposed by Change for Tottenham. Yeah, they kept that really quiet behind the scenes. It was propped up at the start of the game and it read 24 years, 16 managers, 1 trophy, time for change. Joseph, I'm going to kick it off with you. Are you behind, Change for Tottenham and what they're trying to achieve? But where do you stand as well generally with this ownership? Are they the main problem?
Definitely on both of those. I'm definitely behind Change for Tottenham. It was something that I wasn't really too much aware of, to be honest. If I'm being completely honest, obviously we've all had our opinions of the ownership and how poor they've been over the years, especially the recent years. And I wasn't too much aware of Change for Tottenham and what they were doing behind the scenes. But seeing that banner was, it was great to see the fans really starting to question and seeing it in the stadium, because we don't see it much in the stadium. We haven't seen too many banners and things like that. Obviously, we can hear it a lot in the stadium, but even then, it's sometimes not a collective. And it feels like what they're trying to do is get a collective voice to be heard from the ownership to show our distaste, to show our that we're not content with what they're doing. And on the live that we did, on the space that we did, again, thank you for so many people that joined that. It was unbelievable to see the amount of people come in, almost 300 people all coming in and listening and having their say. It was great to see. But speaking to one of the people who came on and spoke, it was great to hear. They were a part of the Change for Spurs kind of movement and the page and what they were doing, and they've got other things planned. So it's great to hear, and it's great to see that things are hopefully, maybe they can try and get something going. It's so difficult for us to say, what's going to happen with this ownership. We all want them to go. I think well, the majority of people want them to go and want them to sell, but obviously it's hard to know how much of a say we're going to have in that. It feels like as football fans, as football kind of becomes so money orientated and how football's going, it seems like we're going to have less of a voice when we in this kind of conversation. We look at we look at Germany. We look how it's fan owned. Half the club's fan owned, and they get some real decisions for their club. I think we all wish that we had that, but unfortunately, that's not what the Premier League's like right now. So definitely behind Change for Spurs, and really hoping that they can keep on doing what they're doing, the great work that they're doing. I think the other thing as well with that banner, it was horrible to see. I'm sure people saw clips of the stewards trying to take it down, and I thought that was disgraceful. Freedom of speech, we should be allowed to voice whatever we feel. If that's against the ownership, if that's against the players, if that's against the manager, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and it wasn't done in a disrespectful way. It was just voicing their opinion, and there's nothing wrong with that. So it was horrible to see the stewards trying to take that down. But again, it just shows Levy that he's, shows what Levy's like. He's trying to stranglehold in this club, and he doesn't want to let go of it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, and I'm seething, to be honest with you. I'm absolutely livid with the ownership following this defeat. Usually, I mean, regular listeners will know that I try and always keep a neutral stance and ask questions, but I just feel at this point, I feel like slowly but surely, we're losing the identity at the club. I feel like there once was a club there, and I just think so many other things are now prioritised. It's for me, it's profit over glory, and I just can only see us going backwards. And Julie said something to me off air before coming on. I think she's spot on. We could actually be in a relegation battle, and none of us, ever thought that. But we see games like that, and we look upstairs, for people that we should be doing something, in the owners, in the board. What we see, nothing apart from bringing in a goalkeeper, and reports coming out today from reliable sources that they found the January window tough and don't know what to do. I've no words to describe it. I'm seething because I can just see another, Ange being another victim.
It's just not a position that Tottenham should ever be in. We should never be going into window going, oh, it's too tough. From reports that I've seen, we're the 8th richest club in the world. We should be acting like one of those richest clubs and going out and buying the players that we need for our club. It should never be the case that, we're struggling to get players in. This isn't where Tottenham should be operating. It's where we are operating because the ownership isn't willing to act like the big club that we are. If you look at, sorry if I'm going on too much, but I'm very passionate like you are, Harry. I'm sure you are as well, Julie. It's horrible to see our club falling apart at the hands of this crook, to be honest. And, he's brought the club into a good financial position, but that doesn't mean anything if you're not going to go then spend the money where you've put yourself in that good financial position.
Exactly.
So there is one thing I'll say here, though. It's not actually Daniel Levy, is it, who really calls the shots?
Yeah. No, it's Enoch. Exactly, yeah.
So, I mean, in a way, he's the fall guy and he's the useful idiot. But I will say, I think the club has dug itself into a hole because, it was becoming obvious long before this that something had to give, something had to change. It's stick or twist, really, whether you're Ange in or Ange out. I mean, I personally, I thought Ange is absolutely great, fantastic, really direct, forthright, has a great relationship with the players, all that stuff. But if they were going to get rid of him, they should have got rid of him about 3 months ago, something like that. But they didn't. So what's happened? They're not backing him in this window. So it seems to me that whatever happens, come the end of the season, he'll be getting his coat, and this all could have been avoided. Manchester United acted just in time. So did West Ham. I mean, I think Graham Potter was one of the potential replacements that was discussed before Ange, and I've heard that the board weren't very keen, but at least he was a sort of reasonable choice in a way. If they wanted to get rid of Ange, if you see what I mean, here's a guy who could have kind of pulled things together a bit. But as I say, the board has just dug itself into a hole now. They're not going to back the manager, but they're not going to sack the manager. So where are we? We're just kind of hurtling towards possible relegation. I mean, I for the first time yesterday, I just thought I can really see this happening. I mean, I think that the thing about Ange is, do you think there's such a thing as an unlucky manager? Because I think he is unlucky.
You could say that for all of our managers. I think they've all been unlucky.
Just becoming Spurs manager.
I think they've all come into a club expecting to be treated the same way they might have at every other club, and they've been given a harsh reality that Tottenham don't act that way and don't run that way. You know, I wouldn't say any manager has really been given the same kind of treatment they get at every other club. Unfortunately, it's just the way that Tottenham have always acted.
But I think the questions we've got to ask, Joseph, and I think you're spot on, I think Julie is as well. Why can't we compete with those clubs? We were sold this dream, if we moved to a new stadium, we'd be able to. I'm not saying we should spend 100, 150 million, this window. Should not asking to sign Mbappe's of this world. I'm asking us to compete. We've seen Aston Villa go out there and sign 2 players. We've seen West Ham put in a bid for Duran. It's just about showing a little bit of ambition. But you hear numbers, and I absolutely believe that. I don't believe a lot of reports, but about the budget of this window. If it's anything like that's being reported, 5, 10, 15 million, that tells you all you need to know for me. And the thing is, it annoys me most is that we knew what we wanted coming into this window. Before the window opened, 31st of December, we knew, and we haven't gone out there and got the job done. Austin impressed on his debut. The goalkeeper would have been, yes, we've been unlucky with injuries in that position. It was a little bit of a problem, but it wouldn't have been a priority for me. So, and some people were literally saying now, oh, don't worry, you don't need to sign a centre-back. Van der Ven or Romero back. That's how a small club would look at it. Don't worry, the players are coming back. But 3-4 weeks ago, these players should have been brought in. Business should have been done, lined up for January, because you can still get things done behind the scenes.
The damage has already been done, isn't it? We needed a centre back on January the 1st. Now we're January 27th, and we've lost about 4 games in that time frame. We needed a centre back right at the start, and you're right. But that question that you asked right there, in terms of why don't we act like a big club, I don't think anybody has the answer for it. I don't think anyone has the answer for it, other than it's the ownership that aren't willing to act like it. I mean, when you look at the Premier League from the outside, you look at Tottenham and you think they have every opportunity to be the most successful club for the next 10 years in England.
100%.
We have the stadium, the training facilities, we have some of the young players. Whatever you think on the manager, again, I understand some people are Ange, and personally, I'm more leaning to Ange out, but I respect everybody's opinion. I don't think he's the main issue at Tottenham. I think there's bigger problems. But again, you could say you've got the manager in place. You've got everything around the club to be able to look for the future and think this club can win so many trophies. They can be the real centre of English football. But you need an ownership that's willing to go spend like that.
It's the Woolworths touch, Everything is just sort of on a certain level, and there's just sort of 1 or 2 things which just kind of cheapen it. Like you say, great training ground, great facilities, best stadium in the country. I'm very cynical. I think they're just not interested in the football operation now.
No, they're not.
They want
Exactly.
They're going to do NFL. They've got the concerts. They've got the go-karts. Whatever. It's an entertainment centre, and that's what they'll sell it as when it goes. By which time, what is going to happen to our football club?
I mean, we mentioned previously about, obviously, recently Tottenham, the ownership removed the actual name Tottenham Hotspur off the badge. And some people were saying, oh, that's nothing, we've had that off but to me that was like, we're looking at a franchise now.
It's very significant, isn't it?
Exactly. We're looking
they know what they're doing.
Exactly. We're looking at an ownership that are looking to franchise Tottenham Hotspur and move it away from the football club and look at it as a brand. That's what PSG are. You look at PSG, they're a brand before a football club, really, in my opinion. But they still spend money to try and achieve in football.
Well,
I was just going to say, Joseph, I wouldn't mind that if, and all this about cutting wages, all these different things we do, all, great, to be honest, but it's where that money's going, because yes, we have spent money under Ange, and yes, we have spent money, but recruitment has been awful. And at a time where we need money spent, we're 15th in the league. What do the board expect when teams in and around you and teams you're trying to catch are buying players, spending money? Even with players coming back, we're not going to close the gap. The gap's going to get bigger. I don't know what they're expecting. I think they think that Romero and Van der Ven are going to come back and we're going to go on a 15, 20 game unbeaten run. Well, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. We're losing games with these players. We've been very unlucky with injuries, but you have to go out there and recruit. Let's be honest, we went into the season with too thin of a squad. Us fans knew that. But it annoys me because we knew that we'd run players like Solanke into the ground. I think Kulusevski is next. Archie Gray will eventually be next. I can see this. We can see this. Why the board not doing something about it? It's as Julie said, stick or twist with Ange. But they're doing this stupid in between where we're just going to sit here and do absolutely nothing and let the season rot. Because I mean, in the league, there's whatever happens, there's probably not much you can do. But I just feel like to be manager of Tottenham right now is going to be one of the hardest jobs. You've got to work with Levy, you've got to work with this board. And like you mentioned earlier, Joseph, about that banner being taken away, that makes me think, dictatorship comes to my head straight away. Under his ownership, taking away free speech. And we're not the only club, but that's what strikes me. I just find it really sad. And it's really, I mean, I didn't really feel strongly even before that Leicester game. And some people say, how can you change, I suppose, that much about the result? But I feel like it's that significant. And you can, if you just sit back a minute and look at what is happening at Spurs, and for me, right now is crystal clear. And I think we all have to try and come together and try and get our football club back at the end of the day.
I mean, it was such a telling performance, that game, to be honest. Like it was more than just a game of football. It was everything around it. It was the attitude and the atmosphere from the fans, and how hollow the stadium felt. I don't know, I feel like that's the word I'd like to use. The stadium feels hollow at this point. It doesn't feel like there's any togetherness in anywhere apart. You've got a team on the pitch that can't perform, maybe due to fatigue, maybe due to the tactics, who knows? There's many options that you could look at in that. But a team that can't perform, that's 2 games against relegation candidates, and you've lost them both to Everton and Leicester. You've just got, again, lack of investment in the squad, a manager that's screaming for help. He's almost like he's drowning.
He's saying it, isn't he? He's saying it. The boys need help. He can't be any clearer, apart from doing a Conte and losing his job. He's been quiet up until now, and I do think he's a little bit of a yes man, and whatever. I do believe that, but he's been crystal clear, as you say.
Yeah, and it's just, again, it's just everything around Tottenham is so negative now. Like when we were talking in that space last night, I was kind of speaking to people. Everyone was just so down. No one was even angry. And I think it's got past the point of anger now. When we first started losing, people were getting angry, people were getting really frustrated, and people were, pointing fingers, going, "This is wrong. We need to do this. We need to change this." And we were all just sitting there, and everyone just seemed so deflated. No one seemed to have any kind of fight in them. They were just like, "I don't know what to do. I don't know. It's just everything's going wrong." And that's the state of Tottenham Football Club right now. That's the state we're in. I think everyone's so lost, and everyone's just. They're so desperate for something to change, but how do we drive that change? I don't think anyone truly knows.
I think a lot of the fans now are united. The ones I know are, but I think, we don't have any say in the matter. I mean, basically we're just stooges, aren't we? We support Tottenham Hotspur. We don't
customers, aren't we? Just customers. That's all it is.
Well, that's how we're regarded. We don't.
That's what they look at.
So somebody like me who's supported Spurs for years and years and years through thick and thin, this is a terrible time. I mean, when Spurs were relegated in the 70s, I didn't feel like that then. I mean, I didn't feel like this in the 70s, because I thought, that it was still a football club. But, I just don't see the board actually caring that we're in this position. That's what really, really disturbs and angers me. That there's no sort of kind of reaction or anything like that. I mean, the chairman just sort of sits there every match, expressionless. Every time that they make a gesture which is meant to sort of appease the fans, it goes wrong. It's so reactive, and this time they're not even reacting.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you look at Manchester City. I know we're obviously in different positions, Manchester City right now, but Manchester City have also had quite a rough season. They've had injuries. They're not in the best position right now. But what have they gone and done in January? They've gone and signed a new centre-back, or 2 new centre-backs, both very young centre-backs for around 40-ish million euros. They've gone and signed Marmoush from Eintracht Frankfurt for 60-something million euros. They've gone and done something that is, to be fair, unfathomable for the January transfer window, but they've gone and done it because they see the position they're in. And whilst Tottenham are in a similar position, or a much worse position, we've just stood still and done nothing. And it just shows, Man City have gone, we didn't expect to be here. Let's react and try and make a change.
Yeah.
Who knows if that's going to end up coming through? I imagine they will start picking up a bit of form, but there's nothing to say they definitely will. But with those signings, it will help them a little bit. But Tottenham, we've got less than a week around a week, of the transfer window left. And it's now being said that Tottenham might sign one player. Whilst at the start of the season, we were sitting here saying we needed 4 or 5 players. It's just where we're at the moment.
We know January's tough, but other clubs have got business done.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just that ambition there that isn't here with the ownership. Julie's spot on. I don't think they care about the situation. All they care about is that we're not in, around the top 4. There'll be no Champions League money. That's why Levy looks, like he does and is frustrated. I truly believe that. But Parker says in the YouTube chat, at the end of the day, the highest spenders are more likely to win the league or are competing for it. That's true, actually. Spurs need to overspend them just to catch up. I'm not asking us to overspend. I'm not asking us to spend even what City have this window. But as I said, it's about that little bit of ambition, intent. It's just as simple as that for me. And it just isn't here with this ownership that are for me disinterested and just clueless.
The point to that, though, I understand what you're saying in terms of we shouldn't go and spend the most, but
we could, but we won't.
Yeah, that's what I mean. In a sense, we actually probably should. I mean, Tottenham fans spend the most for season tickets in Europe. Why are we not then awarded with the most money in the transfer window?
It's like we're not in these players because of wages, for example.
Exactly.
We know that's why.
And that's such a poor situation. I understand the wage structure and them trying to keep it low to kind of stay sustainable. But again, that's not where football is now. You look at all these clubs and where all these clubs are going, the amount of money they're spending, the wages that people are having to be paid. If you want the top players, you've got to pay them the top money or they're just going to go somewhere else. So it's just Tottenham need to get a grip of, what football is now. To create a successful football club, you have to spend money. And unfortunately, Tottenham don't spend the money to be a successful football club. And it's just now, I'll tell you one thing as well. You're right. I don't think Levy does care. He only cares when he loses money. Well, if we get relegated, he is losing everything. So he's got to try and at least do something to keep us up.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. I do wonder why they're letting this drift into a place where, we can't come back from. I mean, what's going on? That's what worries me. Is something? Are they about to sell the club? Sorry, I'm getting completely incoherent about this because I'm still so sort of angry and disappointed at where we've ended up. It's got to the it's really got to the stage now where I'd be happy if we finished mid-table. I'd think that's a result. To be honest, I don't demand the world as a Spurs fan. It was nice when we had top 4. I thought that was really lovely, but it's not everything for me. I wouldn't mind if we just won a cup once or twice. That'd be nice. This is just, there's just a sort of stasis. It's rinse and repeat. It's just
the cycle.
Yeah, and it's got worse and worse over the years. I don't know. I'm just thinking back. Conte, Mourinho, Pochettino. Yeah, that was sort of lovely. That was an oasis. But they don't seem to learn. Really, I mean,
no.
That's what amazes me. Sorry, as I say, I'm getting really incoherent about this because I am so upset and disappointed about what's happening to my club.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. I personally live with myself, so I can totally understand that. No need to apologise. Just going to go through a couple of comments in the YouTube chat. This speaks volumes for me. David Clark, regular in the chat on the podcast, he says, over my 6 decades supporting Spurs, I've seen us lose aplenty, but I've never felt so low. at this point since Levy and Lewis took over this great club. That tells me, if you don't, get the point from that, I don't know, if you ever will. And Holly's spot on. It's the 27th of January. We've brought in a keeper, and it's only happened because Vicaro's got injured. And absolutely spot on. And even that, it would have been, I'm sure, difficulties around that. It would have made it a lot harder than it need to be. On this podcast, as always, people are welcome on with different views, different opinions. Some people will still defend the owners, the board. I think that's okay, but myself, I just can't anymore. I just think it's like poison at the top. Well, I think that the foundations are broken. I think there's problems at top to bottom. I think, let's be clear. I think the players should be doing a lot better job. I know we've got a lot of players out there, some in particular senior players that just aren't pulling their weight. Like, not being funny, I call them out. Madison feeling a little bit sore when an injury crisis. You just got to get on with it, to be totally honest with you.
I can't believe
young players
that.
are stepping up.
Yeah,
Can't get my head around it.
If a player's got any guts at all, isn't he going to want to, even if he's got a bit of a bad leg, isn't he going to want to go out and fight against his old club, for instance?
You would have thought.
Well, we saw Saar play, didn't he? Saar played, and he wasn't apparently supposed to play. I don't know if maybe they were just... Do you think that was Madison's choice? Do you think that was a medical side of it choice? Were they worried about an injury? I don't know. Maybe it was just him just saying, I'm not going to
Too late for the medical team to start worrying about players. They're rushing Van der Ven and Romero back.
Absolutely. I think that was Madison didn't fancy it.
It shows the attitude and the type of characters we have at the club, really.
Yeah.
Like, I know we've mentioned it on the podcast before, Harry, about this whole leadership team and it just kind of not working. We don't see the attitude of those leaders really caring about Tottenham as much anymore. I mean, we all know Son loves the club, but his attitude on the pitch isn't much, to me, of a leader. He's more of a leader by example.
He's too nice to be.
Yeah, exactly. He's too nice.
You need the kind of modern version of Steve Perryman or Dave Mackay, who isn't frightened to tell somebody when they're,
Exactly. You need a leader, a true leader who's kind of like going to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, get all the players around him and go, come on, you're coming with me. We're going to get through this. Son's not that kind of captain, is he? He's kind of just like, kind of the model student almost, but not someone who's trying to like win a football game desperately and getting everybody around him to come like pull them through it. Because that's what we needed yesterday. We were 2-1 down against Leicester. 2 goals in 5 minutes, and the game turns on its head. And we needed somebody to get every single player around and be like, come on, guys, we can get through this game and we can get a result. We didn't see that attitude. We didn't see that attitude from anyone. All the players just seemed lost for ideas. It looked like they gave up as soon as that second goal went in, because there was no real creativity. There was no, ounce of quality in that team to get another goal. That game could have gone on for another 90 minutes. We weren't going to score. It wasn't coming from anywhere.
But we know we've got injuries, and these players, and some of them, like Archie Gray, Bergevall, Spence, just a few of them, Kulusevski, exceptional. With the circumstances they're under, in particular, likes of Archie Gray, pushing pillar to post, load of different positions, stepping up and helping the team. But still, that starting 11 against Leicester, it's better than theirs. It should be winning the game, and that's a shame on the manager and the players for not getting more out of them. So I think at the same time, this conversation has to be had about the ownership, but mustn't take away that the team manager, that they're not doing a good enough job. At the end of it, was it 1 win in 11? You just can't excuse that. 11 Premier League games, it's just not good at all with whatever players you've got. But I would like to welcome onto the podcast Sean. Thank you very much, patiently waiting there. Hope you're doing well, mate, apart from the football.
I'm doing fine. Well, I was until I just started to speak. But I think it was the fella Julie mentioned, Dave Mackay. He was the captain when I first went to see Spurs. So I come from a slightly later era than Julie, but like her, I'm quite despondent. Quite despondent. Yesterday was inexcusable. I mean, a team that has lost 7 games on the trot, Unbelievable. And, players pulling out for minor injuries when the youngsters are throwing themselves in head first.
Well, this is where I appreciate that, some people are still Angian and they don't really blame him for too much of the issues we're going through. And I can appreciate that. I can understand where that comes from as well, because, he has been he has been given, quite a precarious situation in a sense with all these injuries. But I would say that for me personally, I don't see. I think two things can be wrong. I think Ange can maybe not be the man, and the ownership can be at fault as well. Personally, I don't see Ange as the manager. I don't think he's the right manager to take Tottenham forward. And again, I appreciate people who do think he is. Again, he's not the main issue at the club, but I would say that the style of football and the performances he's getting out of the players he's got has been really poor. I just think, again, there was enough in our team to beat Everton. There was enough in our team to beat. I mean, to be fair, the Everton game, I got even more worried about it, because that first half we could have been 4 or 5-0 down to probably, what are they, the lowest goal scorers, or maybe the second lowest goal scorers in the Premier League? The fact that was even a possibility is awful. That shouldn't even be a conversation. Doesn't matter how many injuries you've got; they can barely score goals, and we've given them that much freedom to go and score 3, and debatably they could have scored more. Sorry. So it's I don't see Ange as the manager to take us forward. But the one thing I do appreciate is that if Ange was to go tonight or tomorrow, there's no one to come in to go and replace him and really get the team that I would want.
That's the thing.
Come in and make.
I don't think it's that's the answer. I think whoever comes in, apart from a quick managerial bounce, isn't, they're not going to get back. So, it's just a vicious cycle. You've got everyone. You've got to have Pep Guardiola. They're going to struggle at Tottenham. That's just the reality we find ourselves in under this ownership, under this board, and the direction where we aim to head in. Whatever that may be, I don't quite know. But yeah, it's really frustrating. So yeah, if you are listening on YouTube, do get involved in the comments below. We've got Billie T joining us in just a little bit. Obviously, I know how popular he is, so stay tuned with that. Sean, can I get your thoughts on just the current mess at Spurs, I suppose, and who's to blame for all this? I mean, where'd you start? How long you got?
Well, I think it's well above the pay grade of Ange Postecoglou. I'm still rooting for the man, because I've seen, for people who don't know, I live in Paisley, 7 miles up the road from Glasgow, and I've seen what he can do in bringing a fractured club together. And he's been left hanging. It's clear that we needed players on January the 1st, and we got a goalkeeper, which was, we were going to get in the summer allegedly. We brought it forward, and I thought, wow, good. This is what I expect from my club, and then nothing, and I just see those players limping into every game. I mean, it was clear after about 30 minutes that the Spurs were done. Once we'd scored, the energy levels just disappeared, and the misplaced passes, and they just looked like a beaten team, and they were 1-0 up. To me, the problems lie upstairs in Lily White House.
I do agree with that, but what I would say, playing devil's advocate here, purely nothing else. Would you say that, like Ange, for example, Porro looked knackered yesterday? Would you say that Ange could have, used Reguilon and Partey great right back, a couple of choices like that?
Yeah, I don't think I think yesterday, I think he did make some big mistakes. In terms of selection, he should never have picked Sarr. I mean, Sarr looked, out of sorts from the kickoff, and it's obviously he's he mix and match. He didn't, he doesn't fancy Reguilon. We've been trying to get rid of him for 2.5 years. I mean, it doesn't exactly speak volumes about our confidence in him, but at least he plays left back, instead of playing right-footed left backs, and unless you're Chris Hughton, you can't do that job. You can't do that job as a right-footed left back,
It is frustrating me a little bit seeing that, he's, obviously before the injury kind of crisis we had, he was refusing to play Reguilon. He was refusing to play Spence. Now Spence has become one of the most important squad players for Tottenham. Why was he not used before that? I don't know. It seems like he'd almost made the decision about them and he wasn't going to turn his head. But it got to a point where he had to turn his head because of how bad the situation got. It just feels like he hasn't really assessed the whole situation where, these players could have been important in the situation we were in where, he knew he wasn't going to go get a left back, another natural left back. You only had one at the club in a doggy. You've got to then, you've just got to then allow Reguilon to at least have the chance in the squad to at least alleviate Udogie from all that pressure and all the minutes he had to play and stop him from being run into the ground. Instead, now we're playing Jed Spence. Well, we were playing Jed Spence at left back before he got injured, but he never looked natural there. He always gave, a good performance, or you tried his best, but he never looked natural at left back. And now you're playing Archie Gray there. And again, he's trying his best, but it's not where he plays. It's not his position. Reguilon is a natural left back. As much as maybe you don't believe he's for the future, you can still use him now. He's the only other natural left back really at the club that can really fit in this system, other than maybe you could say Ben Davis. But again, I wouldn't have him there. But
No.
it just does. It's very confusing why Ange seems to really, just put Reguilon to the side and put him on the bench unless it's desperate.
But if you're that much in an injury crisis, it shouldn't matter, should it? Surely.
No, that's
if
what
you're
I mean.
Playing your natural position, as Sean says as well. Play. Just give him an opportunity. That's the thing with Spence. So it was the mistake. I think we probably tried to get rid of him as well in the summer. Like with Reguilon, I don't know. Whenever he's been called upon, I've liked what I've seen, but I'm not going to be. I don't know. I have a feeling either way about it. It doesn't really matter. But Spence, we've got to keep hold of him.
That's what I mean. For me, Reguilon's not the answer. I don't think he's what we should be looking for as a rotational left back for the future. But for right now, he's 100% the only option for left back. He's the only other option other than Udogie for me.
Yeah, you are. I agree with you. But a lot of it is self-inflicted wounds, though, isn't it? In terms of Europa League squad, whoever picked it, probably the manager, not picking Jed Spence. For example, just taking one right back, just taking one left back. I mean, what's the thinking behind that? You take 4 goalkeepers for one right back. And I'm sorry, but I can't buy anything about, being unlucky from anyone, from the players, from the manager, whoever. I can't buy that. In the Europa League anyway, that was our decision with the players we took, and we got it wrong. So, when we're suffering, for numbers defensively, a lot of it is self-inflicted. I do believe that. Julie, I'll come to you. I want to get on to eventually the game, and a little bit later we'll play Ange Postecoglou's a little clip from his post-match reaction and go into a little bit more detail about his future. But where do you stand with Ange in terms of where the problems lie? You've been very clear, as we all have, about where the kind of problem lies with above and the vicious cycle at the club. But is Ange part of the problem?
Thinking about it, he's very gung-ho, and that seems to be his only mode. It's I don't think he really knows how to coach. I mean, he's a fantastic bloke. He's, just as a bloke, you'd really want to kind of go for a nice dinner with him, or listen to his after dinner speech, something like that. He's very witty, stuff like that. He's a real lovely man. But I don't think he's a coach. I don't think it's my way or the highway with him, and with him it's the highway. He has one trick. And that's how it is. Or people say, "Oh yeah, well, didn't you see how he, tweaked the lineup and did this and did that?" And half the time, I think it's seat of the pants stuff. And as I say, I think he's a lovely bloke. But if the minute that he loses the players he needs to enact that style, he's just done. He doesn't know how to make do, basically. And I'm going to drop a name here. I was chatting with Steve Perryman the other day, and we were saying, who's the coaching team at Spurs? Is it Ryan Mason? Who's with Ryan Mason? Nobody's. They don't seem to have. Postecoglou, when he arrived, he didn't bring his own team with him, did he? He said, "I'll make do with what's there."
But Judy, he's never done that wherever he's gone. Yeah,
exactly. But my point is, what's going on with the coaching staff at Spurs, because this side doesn't seem to have much nous. It doesn't. There's what they play one way, but apart from Ben Davies, who I think is wonderful. The model professional and can sort of fill in wherever. I don't see the flexibility that and I don't think Ange has the flexibility. I think he's a very stubborn bloke. in ways that's a strength, but at the moment it's not a strength, is it?
That's where, I agree with you, Julie. That's where I'm kind of struggling to see Ange as the success, bringing true success to Tottenham. Just because I don't see enough fluidity in the way he plays, and in terms of dealing with game state. I mean, the situation you're in with the players you've got, I don't feel like you can play exactly the same way as he's wanting to. You've got to be willing to adjust that and change that to try and get results. I feel like, this might be quite a short-sighted, point, but I'll make it anyway. When he was at Celtic, he's got debatably the first or second best squad in the league. That's kind of just how it goes. I don't want to belittle kind of Scottish football, but Celtic and Rangers are the two best teams in Scotland, and they have the two best squads. They have the most money to spend, and for him to finish first or second is a given. If he was to finish below that, he's failing. Like Celtic, he didn't do anything in Europe there. All he did was finish first for Celtic, and to me, the style of football worked because his 11 players were better than nearly every other 11 players they played against in Scotland. He can dictate a game of football because his players are the best 11 players on the pitch. Now you've come to Tottenham, and think about where Tottenham are in terms of the quality of players they've got compared to the rest of the Premier League. For me, right now, they're probably around 8th, 7th best squads in the Premier League right now. We cannot dominate games the way he could at Celtic. We can't do that because our players aren't good enough to do that. When you come up against Arsenal, when you come up against Liverpool, and you come up against City, you cannot dominate the game and have your free-flowing football work is exactly how it would have worked.
But so, Joseph, do you not think that's again comes back to the whole board? Because and the whole kind of discussion. Because why are you going to appoint someone if you're not going to give them the tools that he had previously?
Yeah,
I just don't agree with.
And that I agree with. I've had this argument with my dad a bunch of times because he really doesn't think Ange is the right guy. And I've always said that you need, the board has to back him. But my dad was like, do you not think they just got another thing wrong? They just appointed the wrong guy again. They appointed a guy that they thought was going to bring success, but then they knew that with the constraints they have, they're now looking at it going, he can't bring success to Tottenham. They could have just got it wrong again because you're right.
That's fine, but why don't they get rid of him now and give that manager time in the transfer window to choose his players and have a good end to the season and push on? I just don't get it. I don't get the thinking.
I think maybe it's the pressure from the fan base where you're just seeing the amount of people get tired of this, consistent revolving 18 months where we have a manager.
That's where they need to change. That's where they need to change their way, change their recruitment policy.
That I appreciate. And I appreciate what people are saying in terms of Ange just needs to be backed fully. And to be honest, that is exactly what Levy should do. If this is your guy and you're believing in him, then I'm all for them going and spending money for him. That if that's what you want to do, then do it. Because that's what you've brought him in to do. You've got to then back your manager. And that's what Tottenham should be doing. But they're not doing it. And I don't think they will do it. Because we've never seen Levy do it. I don't think they will back Ange. I don't think they will ever go and spend, the highest amounts of money in the Premier League. We're not going to break that wage structure. And for me...
That's why we won't win anything. It's as simple as that.
And then there we go. That's where we're at.
No, it's not a surprise. It's not a... Club at Spurs should be winning a trophy, of course. No trophy since 2008, but it isn't a surprise if you look at how we go about transfer windows. And a lot of people will say money's been spent for Ange. Yes, that's true, but I don't think some of the recruitment has been fantastic. And at times when we've needed that extra push, Champions League final, the year after that, back in Pochettino, it's just for me, I feel like it's mistake after mistake. It's excuse after excuse. It's broken promise after broken promise, and I just think it's enough, but I don't think they're going to go. So that's the thing. It's a whole
agree with you
discussion
well,
how to get them out. I don't know.
Yeah, I do agree with you as well, Harry. It's not all on Ange, and I don't want this to be, me just sitting here going, Ange needs to go and everything else needs to stay the same, because obviously I don't believe that at all. The issues go higher than Ange Postecoglou. But the one thing I would say is, you look at Thomas Frank at Brentford, you look at Andoni Iraola at Bournemouth, they are doing very well with a team. They're overperforming with their team. And they seem to be doing that consistently. You look at Brentford's squad over the years, it's never drastically improved. It's never got really good, but he's consistently made them a quality Premier League team with very little resources. and I've been very impressed with how he's done. I'm not going to lie. At the moment, how I see Tottenham, we don't give our manager fit resources to achieve what we want to. So maybe you need to look at a manager who can overachieve with what they've got. And that's what those managers are doing. I don't know if personally Ange might do that with us. I don't know. It's so difficult. You know, you really don't know where Tottenham need to go and what Tottenham need to do. It's just where I'm at in terms of as a fan with, I just don't see anything happening. I don't see us turning a corner and going on and winning loads of things with Ange Postecoglou.
It's interesting that you raised the issue of Thomas Frank. I think he's very suited to where he is at Brentford. They have a system which is built around him. I don't think if he came to Tottenham, he would be able to get away with the things that he gets away with. And you know, they don't have an under-21s team. They don't participate in here.
Yeah, I can understand that, and I get what you mean in terms of, you know, Brentford seem to kind of suits Thomas Frank because he's kind of given what he's needed in that position. But it's more just the way that I look at what he's done with Brentford and how he's made them a Premier League staple. It's not like he's done that with extremely, you know, loads of backing. He's not worked, you know, in a way, he's worked wonders with what he's got. In my opinion, I feel like Brentford are overperforming massively, and they have 100%. For a number of years now. And it's more just the fact that I think what we all want to see, and what I would be happy to see, is Ange Postecoglou fully backed. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. I wish it will. I really hope it will. But we haven't seen Tottenham fully do it, and I just don't think we ever will see under this regime of Enoch and Levy. I don't think we're going to see it.
But I think it's the whole even like recruitment policy and system. It's just recruiting young and that. There's some really good parts in it, but for me, it just means that you're not going to be able to compete. So I think, you know, tear that up. Leadership team's completely wrong. It's little things like that just make a little difference. But what I find interesting is
it's changed though from 10 years ago when Pochettino took over. He had a young Harry Kane. Who they didn't know whether he was going to sort of come good or not. There was a core of good young players, but he had players like Dembele, who was very experienced, and Lloris, of course. He had Jan Vertonghen. He was. They did this, you know, relentless now buying of young players, as that, you know, seems to be a newer development. Do we not think? They're just young, like policemen.
There's good positives to it, but I think that we're now not buying, you know, ready-to-made or experienced players, and I think
you need to do it alongside.
That's my point. It's changed. I'm just wondering why it's changed.
Well, you need to do it alongside buying experience. I mean, I look at, you know, I don't want to bring up the Red side of North London and praise them too much, but you look at what they've done in this window or what they're trying to do. They've obviously looking at that Zubamendi from Real Sociedad. You know, I think he's, you know, 24, 25. So he's kind of coming towards his prime now, and he's ready to come in next season and be the vocal point of their midfield. They're also looking at some 17-year-old Norwegian winger called Naipan, who's expected to be, you know, an up-and-coming winger, a good, you know, a world-class player in the future. They're doing both. So you've got players coming in for the now, and you've got players coming in for the future. And Tottenham have just gone, here's the players for the future. And they're not looking at players for the now. Obviously, we brought in Solanke, but that was the only real senior signing that we brought in the window, or in the summer window. And it wasn't enough because we had a whole chain, you know, a whole overhaul in what the team is. And the recruitment hasn't been for the now. It's just been for the future. It's just whether they're going to, you know, sacrificing now is a problem.
Well, I think that I know that a lot of people thought he should go, but I don't think they should have got rid of Højbjerg as it's turned out. You know, he had his limitations, but he just the sort of player who would kind of, you know, get you out of a hole, basically. You know, he had those sort of warrior qualities that are needed when things are difficult. And I mean, I always thought he was pretty decent. I thought it was a shame that he left.
I didn't think it was a problem to sell him if you were going to replace him. And I think everyone thought Archie Gray was going to be that replacement, but he wasn't. Well, he hasn't
He's
been
a
now.
baby.
Because, exactly. So I think it's just Højbjerg didn't suit the kind of pass-first style of Postecoglou, and he hasn't maybe got the legs that you need in midfield. But you're right.
I don't think you need that experienced head though to see games
100%.
out. But you're right. You need to bring in that replacement. If so, and we didn't.
Well, that's the thing. We sold Højbjerg, Lo Celso, Skip. All these players had gone. You basically gutted your midfield out of all the experienced heads that have played in this. And now you've brought in players that again, a lot of the youngsters that we're now pinning our hopes on. Bergvall, Gray, they've never played Premier League football before, and they've been forced into it, exposed to this situation that they don't deserve to be exposed into. We just left ourselves short, and I think, the summer window really proves that. Again, they spent a lot of money, but you can spend loads of money and not really do much to the squad, and that seems to be what we've done in the last 5-6 years. I mean, I know someone's keep on saying, 1.1 billion spent since 2019. That's all great, but if you don't invest it right, it means nothing.
You dissect that, and majority have spent really, really poorly.
Exactly. You look at Manchester United. Manchester United have spent billions upon billions of pounds. They're still 14th next to us or 13th with us. So, if you don't invest the money right, you're not going to get success.
Yeah. What about the transfer window the summer of 2019? Ndombele, Lo Celso.
Exactly. So everything we've done, it just keeps on going wrong. I mean, you think about the 60 million we spent on Richarlison, 50 million on Brennan Johnson, all this money on these players that aren't really living up to the price tag.
I think Brennan Johnson's decent, actually.
No, I don't. I really don't.
You're not a fan.
I don't. I just think. I don't think what he brings to the team is worth 50 million. For me, he gets to the back post and puts the ball in the net. I think so many players could do that. I don't see his one-on-one ability is so poor in terms of running past somebody. We never see him do it. I don't remember a moment where I saw him beat his fullback. He just never does. He always loses out on that 1v1. I just really don't.
It doesn't have the confidence, does he? I agree with you in terms of his all-round game. I like him, though. I do like him. I'm willing to give him a bit longer. I think his numbers are good, but as you say, he's got to do more.
Again, you're right. His numbers are good, and I appreciate
he's scoring goals. Score goals, though, isn't it?
What's that, sorry?
It's a pretty good skill to score goals.
It is, but personally, the goals he's scoring, it's not like they're really impressive. He's putting the ball in the net when the ball comes across the 6-yard
box. Some would say, does that matter as long as it goes in?
But I agree. But do you have to spend 50 million to find a player to do that?
But we're all saying we want us to spend the money and show a bit of ambition. Is that a case of just getting the player in and playing what Forest wanted? Just playing devil's advocate. I don't believe that.
No, I understand what you're saying, but also the one thing I'd say is Tottenham seem to. I love doing business with teams that are down the bottom. We're buying players off Everton, and
because we are there now.
Exactly. Yeah. But the point is, you look at the top teams; they seem to try and buy from the top teams, and we buy from the low teams.
Do you notice how whatever we discuss tonight comes back to one thing? And
it's
just ambition. And we
know what the real problem is. I think all of us know what the real problem is, but it's just how do we force change? It's so hard. Like, I understand there was people, I read a post on X where someone was saying to the people who didn't, chant Levy out at the game, what are your reasons for it? And I was looking through the comments, and the main reason people said is though, they just said, I don't think it's going to change anything. And I think most Tottenham fans sit here and go, we don't have a say in what happens to Levy. We've got no choice. And I completely agree with that. I think we can chant and we can say, we want Levy out. But it's never going to get to a point where people are going to stop going to games. It's never going to get to a point where people are going to cancel their season tickets. It's never going to get to a point where they're not still getting the revenue. Until something drastically changes, Levy is going to stay there because he's still making money from the club. Until it gets to a point where he's losing money, he's not going to be looking to sell the club. I don't think he cares at all if people chant.
What about if you make it hostile for him, though, like with the chants, with banners and
I don't know.
pressure?
I personally see it changing. I don't think he cares because what we spoke about already is we've said that we don't think he cares about the footballing side. He just cares about the profit and what he's made, as a business. So if he's getting some hostility from the fans, if he's still making his money, why would it change his mind?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just tough, man. It's tough to say. Like, I don't see us really driving anything out, but it's just how, I don't know if banners and chants are going to drive them out of the club.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Joseph. Julie, I know you have to jump now. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you and the wonderful you do with your writing books and your amazing creativity?
Right. I'm on X as Dame Julie Welsh. I'm on Blue Sky, and I'm even on Facebook. And that's about it. Not Insta, I'm afraid.
That's all right.
I'm so old, I can't cope with all these socials. But thanks for having me on.
Worries.
It's been great.
No,
Bye,
thanks
everyone.
for coming on.
Thank
Welcome
you.
back anytime.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye then. Bye.
Bye. So, show must go on. I think we should move on to the game, maybe. It's a Leicester match reaction podcast, and I don't know about you, but I don't want to discuss it, but I think it has to be done. Sean, I'll kick it off with you. Still waiting Billie T. Hopefully can join us in a little bit. So let's go through, actually, before I come to you, Sean, our lineup for people who didn't see it. So Kinski, Porro, Dragusin, Davis, Gray, midfielder Bergevall, Bentancur and Sarr, and a forward line of Kulusevski, Richarlison and Son. Madison misses out, with a little knock. He's feeling sore, as unsaid. We have discussed that. Onto the action, though, itself, Sean. 33rd minute, first goal of the game, went to Spurs, through Richarlison. I mean, it was a lovely cross by Porro and a, kind of nice moment to score, wasn't it? Because it was a nervy start to the game.
Yeah, it was good to take the lead. I was hoping it would lead to more, but it's we failed to capitalise on that, and we sort of saw out the half, and I felt it was inevitable that Leicester were going to score because they kept. We weren't threatening them very much. So, to be fair, Son had a few good chances early on, but we just looked out on our feet from 30 minutes onwards, as I said earlier, and that just gave Leicester all the encouragement they needed. To be fair,
yeah, it certainly did, didn't it, Joseph? Happy for Richarlison? Needed that?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. It's hard. Like
reluctantly,
I'm so dejected from the game. It's hard to take any positives from it. I understand what you're saying.
I get that.
It's right to go through the game. And again, for that first half, I thought we were really poor, and we just happened to be 1-0 up. I think we really, it wasn't impressive at all the way we were playing. I think, like Sean said, I think after the 30th minute, you could see how shattered the players looked. And it was so hard to take too many positives from the game because I was just sitting there and I was, again, after that second half, I remember when I started the space, I was just sitting there in disbelief. I was like, I usually come on here with, things to say, a way to start. And I was just sitting there and I was like, I don't know what to say. I genuinely don't know what to say after the performance. But
well, you've done a good job because you managed to attract 300 people to the page.
True.
Something I haven't been able to do, I think, ever. So
I think it was just so many people wanted to have their say on just what we just watched, and that's what we wanted. That's what we want this channel to be. We want people to come in and have their say and be able to express their opinion. And I think a lot of people had things to say after that game.
I'm sure they did. Welcome onto the podcast. Better late than never. Billie T, thank you so much for joining us. I know how busy you are. How you doing, mate?
Hello, guys. Yeah, man. Sad like everyone else, man. It feels like a real turning point. I think this one. I think
Absolutely.
maybe the worst loss I can remember in my lifetime. I would say, definitely up there anyway in terms of real devastating one.
It's time to start putting pressure on the owners and the board, isn't it, Billy?
Always. I've been saying that for a long time, but definitely. This is it now. This is what we've all got to come together and do it, because this is literally the worst it's ever been since I've been following Tottenham. We've never been in a relegation fight that I can remember. Obviously, we're in 1994, I think, but it's a bit young for that. So, yeah, this is the worst I can remember, and it's not acceptable, and it can't be acceptable for any fan of Tottenham.
They're just letting it happen, though, aren't they, Billy? The ball, they're just sitting there, not doing anything. For me, it's you sack and you back him, and they're doing this stupid in between. But we just don't show ambition, do we? Either, in the window to get anything done. So poor.
I mean, 27th of January, we've had 27 days to sign an outfield player and not done it.
We knew what we wanted, though, coming into the window.
I was actually looking back at these quotes that Ange made. He said he's had meetings with Lang, or however you want to pronounce it, and they are planning already who they want to sign in January. That was in November, so that says it all. Those quotes were from November.
Yeah, and we know the window's tough in January, but as I've said already tonight, people are getting business done. There's happening everywhere. So
it's only tough for us, funnily enough. So there you go.
Yeah, funny that we're finding it hard. It's really poor. I feel like we're acting like a small club, relying on players to come back, not doing anything about it. Really, really frustrating. But yeah, we as I said, we do need to discuss the game itself. First half, Sean, I'll ask you about that first half because we did go into it with a 1-0 advantage before, as we know, everything collapsed and went wrong. What were your thoughts on that first half overall? Because as I talked about, it was a nervy start. We got that goal. What were your thoughts once we got that goal? Did you maybe not kick on as much as you thought?
Well, you thought when you're playing a team that have lost, 7 in the trot, that normally that they would collapse.
Don't win away from home, only one away win.
They don't win games.
Don't score, let in load of goals. Yeah,
the crowd are on the back of their new manager. His new manager bounce lasted about 2 games, and yet we, within 5 minutes, as we go into the second half, it was all turned around.
Well, we give every team belief, don't we? I mean, it happened with, I think it's Crystal Palace, Ipswich, Everton, Leicester, all these teams going on losing runs, and they turn it around against Tottenham. They've won against Spurs, so it's just what we do, isn't it? It's what
yes, we've been unlucky, but again, we talk about self-inflicted. You don't get that second goal, you cause yourself a load of problems. And that team, as I said, on the pitch should still be winning that game, despite all our problems. It's really, really poor and really frustrating. But Joseph, I mean, what I'm going to come into next is written in the stars, wasn't it? 46th minute, Leicester get that goal, and it comes through Jamie Vardy. I mean, it's just a comedy of errors defensively. What's the goalkeeper doing for a start?
I don't know. I bloody hate Jamie Vardy. He just loves scoring against us, doesn't he? He's so annoying. He's such a wind-up. But I understand it because he just thrives off of it. He thrives off of creating that kind of atmosphere, and he did it really well. But again, he was in the position to take the chance, and fair play to him. It was poor from Tottenham, poor defending, just a mix-up from the players, really. I mean, Kinski, I don't know why he didn't just gather the ball. I don't know what he was doing, but again, it just shows, we do switch off sometimes. It feels like sometimes when we come out in that second half, we have switched off. We've done it in other games. And again, a minute into the half, there's no reason for you to be in a position to concede 1 minute into a half. You need to stay solid. You need to be ready for everything that's going to come at you. And yeah, we weren't ready for it. So really disappointing way to concede. But again, it's how you bounce back after you concede. And we did the opposite. We capitulated.
The shades of Brighton away.
Exactly,
in
that game, there's no reason for you to fall apart when you're 2-0 up. You've got to stay vigilant and ready for it. And it felt similar in this game. We're 1-0 up, and it felt like we expect to just cruise towards the final whistle. And 1 minute into the second half, you're already, pegged back to 1-1. Again, it's how you switch and how you go from there. And again, we just didn't react at all.
Yeah, we certainly didn't. Billy, not long after 50th minute, Leicester get that goal to go ahead in the game. I mean, they just don't win away from home. The fans are chanting that. It tells you all you need to know. El Khanous, who got the Leicester goal, I mean, I haven't seen much of him at all all season, typical Spurs. I mean, he's allowed far too much space for that shot, wasn't he? I mean, felt like he had the whole pitch to himself.
Yeah, it's obviously a really good goal, but it's a typical passive defending, which Andrew talks about quite a lot. Too passive, and it's typical of our defending this season. It's typical, and I actually feel it's more of as much as it is tactical. It's a mentality thing as well. As soon as we come up against any kind of anything starts going away from our opponents, we crumble mentally. And you can almost predict what's going to happen as soon as that Jamie Vardy goal goes in, and you kind of feel the narrative shift that we're probably going to lose this now, and we did.
Yeah,
I think one thing I'd like to say, I mean, I've noticed this in so many games now, and I really don't understand why Ange is refusing to address it. we give so much freedom to the creative midfielders of our opponents. I remember the Chelsea game, and Cole Palmer and Enzo Fernandez had so much freedom to drive through midfield because Sarr or Bentancur, Basuma, sorry, well, it wasn't Bentancur at that point, but the midfielders are so far up the pitch and we're chasing back the creative midfielders. They're the players that you're trying to, we're trying to stop them from making the chances. But in that position against Leicester, El Khanous had so much freedom in that midfield. I mean, we saw who was running back. Papa Sarr, Bentancur, trying to chase him back and get the ball. Sorry, Bergvall at that point. Papa Sarr wasn't on the pitch, was he? But those players are chasing back. Why do we have such a gap between our midfield and defence when a team's on a counter-attack? We're just allowing for chances to be created against us. And I don't understand why it's not been addressed. And
I think that was evident last season as well. And pretty much every fan was calling for a number 6 to come in summer. And it never happened. Our midfielders are sort of, they don't profile as number 6s really. None of them do particularly well. And I think we're really lacking a central defensive midfielder, as it used to be called back in the day. We don't have anyone that's going to get in their face and tackle like that. We just don't. We've got some, box-to-box midfielders, creative midfielders. We don't have those sort of, your classic DM midfielders, number 6s.
Yeah, too many 8s and not enough 6s.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly.
But again, it's just, we sold that 6 in Højbjerg, didn't we? So, and we didn't bring another one into the club. And I've just noticed it in so many games now that a lot of our opponents, they have so much freedom in that half space between the midfield and the defence. And that's where a lot of their goals come from, as well as Porro obviously being miles up the pitch and having the absolute massive space in behind him. So it's just, again, another, for me, a tactical, mishap from Ange, right? I don't understand why it's not been addressed, because that seems to be where all these teams are getting their chances from.
And it was particularly emphasised by the fact that Harry Winks dominated our midfield.
Mm-hmm.
He had a really good game, I thought, against us.
Yeah, he was excellent. The only one probably in the Leicester shirt as well. That speaks volumes to the winning team.
I know obviously he had a bit more motivation, but still, it's never good to see.
No, it's again speaks volumes, doesn't it? Sean, would you say that's a tired performance from us? Because I don't know about you, I didn't think Leicester looked good. Just a bit more energy in that second half, a little bit more belief that Van Nistelrooy would have installed at halftime.
Yeah, I think Leicester took their chances. We didn't, and they just did. I mean, they just went into a block. I mean, they're bringing on Connor Cody to go back into their defence. And we didn't look like we could break them down. We just didn't look like we could break them down. We could have been there, I think Josie was saying, we could have been there 90 minutes longer and we weren't going to create a chance. And then the one chance that we do have, Porro decides to have a shot like from, I don't know, almost on the touchline. And I look at that and I'm going, there's Archie Gray, there's Mikey Moore, waiting to tap it in, classic and goal, and he just goes for glory. I can't repeat on air what I said at that moment.
Please don't.
I'd like to quickly say that comment that was up there then by David. I don't know if you can put it back up.
The number 6, he doesn't think we need one.
I mean, I understand what he's saying, but the point's very irrelevant. Like, he's saying that a great number 6 wouldn't, the space is out wide with Porro and the other fullback. I understand that's still a problem, but a number 6 would help the spaces in the middle. So I get what he's saying. Yes, a number 6 wouldn't help with the spaces out wide.
It still solves some of our problems, not all of it.
Yes, exactly. So that's why I was just want to say I don't agree with that point at all.
That's fine. No problem at all. That's fine. It's just some stats before we listen to Ange Postecoglou quickly preview Elfsborg. 6 defeats in 7 now for us, 1 win in 11 Premier League matches. We sit 15th place on 24 points. We've lost 13 games this season. Wow. 8 points as well above the relegation zone. Spurs in December. Only Southampton with 9 have lost more Premier League games than Spurs with 8. Only Southampton with 1 have picked up fewer Premier League points than Spurs with 5. Only Southampton again, 28, have conceded more Premier League goals than Spurs, 24. There's a little bit of a running theme here regarding our form. Let's hear, though, from Ange Postecoglou speaking with Spurs TV after the game. Obviously, the questions and that will be tailored a little bit more relaxed for him, but he doesn't generally handle it well, I don't think, post-match. But here's what he had to say nonetheless.
How do you find it there today?
Yeah, no, tough one to take in, but look, I think aside sort of from that 5-minute patch after half-time, I thought we controlled the game well. We certainly have enough chances to win the game, but things weren't dropping our way. And but again, I'll just repeat myself. I think the players are giving everything they can. Every bit of energy they've got, they're trying as hard as they possibly can. And but ultimately a disappointing day.
And you've won wherever you've been. How tough has this been for you at the moment? I mean, just for you personally, and we know what's going on with the team, but this must be hitting you hard. Yeah,
it does. But at the same time, I'm kind of responsible for it, so you've got to take that on board. But I when you're in this kind of position, you're kind of looking at the people around you, and I just feel that the players, the staff, the people at the football club that I deal with. They're still totally supportive of what we're trying to do, and that's all you can ask for as a manager. I think for me that gives me the energy and put aside my own sort of disappointment and feelings and make sure I help and support these people who are trying everything they possibly can, trying as hard as they can to turn this around.
Interesting. Ange Postecoglou there, taking a lot of the criticism, still trying to remain upbeat and positive and calm. Clearly had some time to dissect and think about that game before doing that interview. Billy, would you say Ange is out of his depth? I think me and you could both agree, along with everyone on the panel tonight, that he's not the main problem, and problem lies further up, right at the very top of the club. But is he part of the problem and maybe out of his depth?
I probably wouldn't say out of his depth, but I'd certainly say he's making quite significant mistakes regularly. Obviously, it's a really complicated situation because there are so many factors that are feeding into this. I will always personally blame the ownership of the football club for being the main driving factor in our negligence. Where at the current situation we currently find ourselves in, obviously then you've got the injuries to take into account. But make no mistake, there is definitely it's not working at the moment. I hope as much as anyone that if the players come back, we might see some form. But I'm not convinced at the moment. I love the guy. I made no secret about that. But I don't know. I don't see a path forward at the moment for us on Ange.
That's interesting. Thank you. Sean, where do we go from here? The ultimate big question.
Well, we go back to Europe on Thursday, don't we? It's we just that becomes another must win because we can't drop out of the top 8. We can't afford to go into that punishment round of the.
Imagine having 2 more games. Can you imagine? Jesus Christ!
Oh God, no. We just need to win the game. Don't people tell me we can draw? No, we go in there thinking we need to win to stay in the top 8, and then we stay in the top 8, and then we get a week off sometime in February or 2 weeks off in February. Be brilliant.
I'll tell you what, though, Sean, I think we were going into this Leicester game saying we needed to win. Look what happened.
And Everton.
Every game's a must win, and we're not winning them.
Yeah, but then Hoffenheim was a must win, and we won.
Yeah, that's true.
And that was eking out a performance out of very tired players.
The one thing, I didn't mention it about the Leicester game, but the one thing that I wish I saw more from our team is when it got to 2-1 and there was 25 minutes, 30 minutes left, Leicester just completely nullified the game. Like, they were very resolute in defence. We didn't really have any kind of creativity and we could not break them down. And I don't feel like we see that much. Even towards the end of the Hoffenheim game, I'm sure like everyone, I was sitting there going, we're going to concede again. Because they were pumping the ball into the box and every moment it looked like they were about to just put the ball in the net. But I didn't notice that at all with the Leicester game. Leicester were completely and utterly so assured of themselves in their defensive block. We were never creating something to get a real chance on goal. And I'd like to see more of that from Tottenham. I think there's a lot of pride you can take in defensive nous and really getting behind and keeping a clean sheet. I understand some people really like the free-flowing attacking football that Ange can have and we want to outscore teams. I think you can take a lot of joy in the defensive output of your team and keeping a clean sheet and seeing real defensive actions and a solid team, a solid back line. And also that's a winning team. That's a team starts with a defense. That's when you usually go on and win trophies and become a successful team. It starts with a great defensive unit. So I just thought that's something to mention. That's one thing again that I struggle with Ange sometimes. I just want to see a real defensive structure, which is not something that he seems to maybe put enough focus in.
100%. Billy, obviously you weren't here at the start of the podcast, so I want to get you, obviously, I know your thoughts on the ownership, the hierarchy, but just going to play a little clip from inside the stadium and get your thoughts. I mean, I don't think that clip does justice to how loud it was at times. It's certainly what I think, for me, it's the loudest I've heard Levy out, and just general chants about him since I've been going to a game. Would you agree with that? And, do you think that this game, you talked about it being significant, a turn? I mean, lots of people are starting to turn, aren't they, against the ownership, against Daniel Levy?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the ultimate turning point, really. And how could it not be? Like this is the first time we've had to stare relegation in the face, for like 30 years or whatever it is. So it's a significant turning point, and I think the danger of relegation is, has finally sort of got fans behind the movement of that this chairman is simply not good enough. He's not fit to run a football club under any stretch of the imagination. He's fantastic at the business side of things, we know that, but ultimately the reason why those fans are sat in that stadium is for the football side. And the football side is badly mismanaged and has been for a number of years now. You could probably argue that it's been badly mismanaged for pretty much the whole 10 years. So,
Would you say it's Levy or Enoch, though, Billy? Would you say it's wider ownership? That's the issue.
From what I gather, that Joe Lewis doesn't seem to take much interest in any of it. So, and certainly doesn't anymore anyway. So, Daniel Levy is very proud to take responsibility when things are going well, like the stadium and everything like that. So he can certainly take it when it's going bad as well. So I will squarely put the blame on Daniel Levy and Donna Cullen, I'd like to say as well, who is very heavily involved in our communications. So yeah, I just want to shout out Change for Tottenham as well. The banners that they produced. I work pretty closely with those guys. I know the organisation that went into that was really difficult. I know they came up with some obstacles at the end of it as well from the club, tried to say it was a fire hazard and all sorts of nonsense, but shout out to those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the ones working hard to try and get our football club back. So
stay tuned as well, because we've got some plans for the Man United game that's upcoming, and we've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline. So stay tuned for the Change to Tottenham people, because this is our time. We have to be. It has to be. This is it now. If we don't come together now as a fan base, then I can't imagine a situation where we ever will.
No, I'll be there and hoping to help
Everyone's
as well.
Looking forward to it. I think everyone's behind it. It was the first I really heard of it on yesterday. I didn't know too much about it, but I think I was in a space with 300 people, and I think every single person learned something new and went, "This is something we're getting behind now because it has to." And it's such good work.
That game flipped me. As I said before, I usually like to just kind of be kind of neutral and see it out. I've definitely had my frustration over the years with the ownership, but for me now, it's just enough is enough. Too many mistakes, too many broken promises, too many lies. It's too much. I feel like we're getting sucked into a relegation battle, and we're sitting here ambitious. But we'll move on to Elfsborg to wrap up the podcast. Joseph, how are you feeling? Firstly, and give me your score prediction.
I'm feeling pretty down, Harry. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know.
Why is that? I don't understand
that. This podcast it's just been negative the whole time. You know what? I think we might win. No, I don't. I don't know. Maybe we can get a result. We'll see. We again, like Sean said, and I think like a lot of us are saying, we need to win this game. It gives us that top 8 qualification, kind of skip of that qualification round or whatever it is. I think it's a game that we should be going into confident. Elfsborg are not a great side. They're doing okay in the European table. I'm not sure exactly where they are, but they're not down the bottom. I think they still have a chance of qualification themselves, if I'm not wrong. So, it's not going to be easy.
Don't excuse us not winning the game.
No, I know. But there's no, it's every game in Europe's going to be tough. There's a reason these teams are in this competition.
Of course.
And it's not going to be simple, but again, we've got to get over the line. We've got to start getting over the line in some of these games. And there's no reason that we shouldn't be going all out for this game, because like, people are saying, we get that bye of the qualification round and straight into the next one. So it's a must win, really.
Yes, and as Billy mentioned earlier, you've all kind of touched on it as well. We don't need those 2 extra qualifying games, do we? It's the last thing we need right now. Sean, Elfsborg, if you can give me your thoughts, as with Joseph has said, it won't be that positive, but mainly your score prediction. Surely, we win this one. I mean, we're saying that.
Yeah, I think we. I mean, I always think Spurs are going to win. I thought Spurs were going to win against Leicester, but they didn't.
The hope that kills us.
It's the hope that kills, yeah. But it's no. I think we'll do the job on Thursday, but I really worry that we won't. We'll suffer on Sunday when it comes to Brentford. So
I'm dreading that. That's going to be tough, isn't it? A nice little outfit, and we're shambles.
Look so good of themselves right now, don't they? And we just look like we're kind of floating through games. Brentford are such a strong outfit in the sense of how they play.
Their home record is unbelievable as well.
Exactly, and again, every player is so deep into what Thomas Frank wants, and again, he seems to change games depending on who he's playing against. He seems to be really assured of his tactics and what works against each team, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has a plan already, ready up for Tottenham, and he's going to be training that all week, because they obviously have the whole week break, but we've got to be focusing on Elfsborg on Thursday before we even get to that game on Sunday.
And if you want to look at a club that is, where they get the football side of things right, that is it. Like, they sold their best player in summer, and haven't really taken a hit at all. Their recruitment is all driven towards Thomas Frank. Obviously, they don't compete at the same level, the table that we're alleging to compete at, but for what they do, they're very, very good at it, and the whole club works together. As Joseph says, the unity in that club is exactly what we should be aiming for, because we don't seem to have any strategy at all.
But Brentford, they're not spending stupid money.
No,
they're not maybe Man City out this window. Smart recruitment and backing their manager. It's not a lot to ask. It's just a little bit of ambition and intent. But Billy, what's your score prediction in this game? Come on, let's be positive.
4-0 Tottenham. 4-0 Tottenham.
That's it.
We'll beat these.
Yeah, I think we win this game. I don't think it changes anything. It doesn't change the narrative. But it'd be nice to win.
I don't have the same optimism for the Brentford game, but let's worry about that another time.
No, nor do I. No, we'll part that aside. We'll see how that goes. But I mean, the next time I could be speaking to you, who knows who's in charge of this football club or anything that happens around Spurs, because a week, 7 days, a lot can change. But
the only thing that will be the same as the owner, unless you've got £7 billion down the back of your sofa.
He might be the manager as well, Make him manager. See, let's do that. That's our last throw of the dice. Make Daniel Levy manager.
Yeah.
I bet he'd probably put himself forward eventually. He'd go, I can do a good job.
You will believe that as well.
He might not be giving himself pay rises then, I tell you, but that does wrap us up nicely for the episode, this week's episode, should I say, of the Scarfe Spurs Talk podcast. Thank you to everyone. Let's go through firstly and thank the panel and see where you can find them. Sean, thank you very much for coming on. I'm glad you got sorted your technical difficulties. Obviously, you've got an issue with your throat, so you've battled through it tonight. As well as Spurs.
Through it, yeah. You can get me.
You
can get me on Twitter X at Tottenham Tifosi, or sometimes you'll see me with my colleagues at Paxton Road TV. Generally you get me on X, Twitter.
Lovely, thank you very much, Joseph. Try again, Joseph. Thank you very much for coming on. Tell people a bit about where they can find you, and also what you're doing at the moment for Scarfe Spurs Talk, my page over on X.
You can find me at Joseph THFC or at Ridgecut Crisps on X. I'm working closely with you, Harry, and your pages, and doing some spaces, post-match spaces on the games. Again, it was great to see yesterday we had around 300 people in the space, all listening and tuning in, and it was great to have such a respectful chat, everyone kind of coming in and having their say on the game. So it was really great to have that, and we're hoping for more of those, hopefully with better outcomes on the games and maybe a bit more positive talk going forward, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we'll be looking forward to more of those, and again featuring on the podcast. Thank you for having me again, Harry. Great host as always.
Thank you very much. You're doing some incredible work, but do as well, like with Sean as well, check out Joseph on his own personal socials, doing some great work. Billie T, I mean, everyone should know where to find you. I say this every time, but they really should. But if they don't, where can they find you?
Yeah, Billie T on Twitter, and then on this show quite regularly, which I really enjoy doing. So thanks for having me as always.
Oh, thank you. You're absolutely always welcome. Really appreciate it, as always. So, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who's listened, whether it be live, whether it be after. If you're on YouTube, smash the subscribe button. If you're listening via audio, drop us a follow, 5-star review. Thank you very much for the continued support. We will get our club back eventually. Let's hope so. I think we all need to unite, come together, put pressure on this board, on these owners. Even if you're still behind them, I still think putting pressure on them can't be a bad thing. For me, that's where the sole blame is at the moment. But come you Spurs, hopefully next time we'll be speaking to you, a win, a 2 under our belt. We just don't know with Spurs. So much can change so quickly. But let's try and be positive. Let's try and back the team as much as we can. Massive come on you Spurs, mate.